welcome to the continuation of the loop. So, in this lecture, we're going to be looking at the nested loop, right? We're going to be looking at nested loop, and you can see the nested loop is actually loop inside another loop, often used for tables, patterns, matrices, and most of the time their structure is often referred to as the order of the n square, right? Order of the n square. So if you're actually running this, so it's running like if you're running this, let's assume that your n is equal to 2. So that means running the iteration by default is like 2 square, which is 4 iterations here. So we're going to be looking at some of the example here. So let's do example 15. Example 15 dot c. So we have include stdioh. So int main. Now assuming we have an array like this, we have n as an array. So we have 4, we have 5, we have 2, and we have 0. Right? Now let me start with the for loop, right? Let's start with the for loop. So if I have 4 int I equal 0, now I is less than, so let me just try to get length here. So length, to get the length of the array is size of n divided that is size of n this. Okay, this is to get the length. So now this is the length, then I plus plus. So remember we're doing nested loop, right? Now this one here is actually the outer loop, right? So now let's solve the outer loop first. So we're going to be solving the inner loop. I'm going to be writing the inner loop. So I just want you guys to learn step by step. Now this is how computer will perform this operation here. If there's a print here, there's a print f, then this is I, right? So now let's how does computer process this instruction here. Now let's look at this. Our I started from 0, right? No doubt. Now it comes here, is 0 less than 4? Now 0 is less than 4, so it will increment I, so it will increment I, and our I becomes what? It will increment I, then our I becomes I is equal to 0 plus 1, which will give you 1, right? Then it comes again. Our I is now 1, right? So it comes here, is 1 less than the length? Yes, 1 is less than the length. So increment I, right? Since this is true, it will increment I, then our I becomes I is equal to 1 plus 1, which will give you 2. 1 plus 1, which will give you 2. Then it comes again, our I becomes 2, right? So it comes here, is 2 less than the length? Yes, 2 is less than the length, so it will increment I. Then our I becomes I equal to plus 1 plus 1, which will give you 3. Now it comes again, our I becomes 3, right? So it comes again here and check, is 3 less than 4? Yes, 3 is less than 4, so it will increment I. Then our I becomes I is equal to 3 plus 1, which will give you 4, right? Which will give you 4. Then it comes again, is I equal 4? Then it will increment. If you check here, is 4 less than 4? Now 4 is not actually less than 4, so the iteration will terminate, right? So if I'm to print this, it will print I equals 0, I equal 2, sorry, it will print I equals 0, I equal 1, I equal 2, and I equal 3. This is what to print out, right? So once this will print out, the result for this, the result for the outer loop will be I equal 0, I equal 1, I equal 2, and then I equal 3. So let's run this and see what happens, right? To what happens before we move to the outer loop. So if I'm to run this, just to see example 15.c output, then example 15.exe. So example 15.exe. So you can see it prints out 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I want to print the next line, then just proceed to be clear. I'll just do this and recompile this. So 0, 1, 2, 3, right? That is what we have here. You can see we have 0, 1, 2, 3. That will be the result. Now we have understood this. So assuming that we say uh, I is equal to 0 and I is less than or equal to the length, what will it print out? Now let's try to solve this together. Now it means when I is equal to 0, then check, is 0 less than or equal to length? Yes. Remember our length is 4. Yes, it will increment I equal 1, right? It will do the same thing to increment this. Then when it comes here, when I becomes 4, is 4 less than or equal to 4? 4 is less than 4, but 4 is equal to 4. So the iteration will not stop here. Rather, it will increment I. Then our I becomes I is equal to 4 plus 1, which will give you 5. Then it will now run another iteration. So when I equal to 5, so what happens? So when I equal to 5, is 5 less than 4? No. Is 5 equal to 4? No. So this is where the iteration for the outer loop stops. So the result of this will now be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the results will now be 0, 1, 2, 3, and I is equal to 4. So if I'm to run this 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Now we have understood this. So even if I is equal to 1 here, right? So how this works, since I is equal to 1, so I equal to 0 will be out, right? And the answer will be I equal to 1, I equal to 2, I equal to 3, I equal to 4. Assuming we have I equal to minus 1, now I equal to minus 1, so length minus 1 is actually 3, right? So when I equal to 1, this works, it will increment. So I equal to 2, this works. When I equal to 3, so is 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes, 3 is less than or equal to 3, so this will work, so it will increment 4. So is 4, when I equal to 4, is 4 less than or equal to 3? 4 is not less than 3, and 4 is not equal to 3, so this is where the iteration stops. So the iteration stops here, right? And we'll move this. So now the results here will now be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 1 I equal to 0 is out, so we're left with, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4 will be out, right? Because the iteration stops here, so the answer will be 1, 2, 3. So if I'm to run this, you can see it's 1, 2, 3, right? So that is how it works. So anyhow this is changed, you can then understand how computer processes the instruction. Now let's look at how the outer loop works. So I'll take it back here. I'll take it back to I equal to 0. I'll take it back to length. So let's look at generally how it works. Now I'll write another for loop here. For int j is equal to 0. Now if j is less than the length j plus plus, then let's print j So to make it readable, I can say when I is this then our j is this. Okay, now let's look at this together. So running this I equal to 0, the first you need to solve here, you need to solve for the outer loop first before you solve for the inner loop. Now let's solve for the outer loop. Let's solve for the outer loop. Right? So the outer loop says when I equal to j, so the first thing we need to do here is when I equal to 0, right? So I equal to 0. So now our length is 4. Remember our length is 4. So it's 0 less than or equal to length, yes, then it will actually increment I, right? So our I, it will increment I, then sorry, I, okay, then our I becomes 1, right? So when you increment I by 1, so it becomes 1. Then it comes again here, our I is now 1, so it checks here, is 1 less than or equal to 4. So this is true, right? Since this is true, it will increment I. Let me just be copying this rather than keep on writing this. So just copy and paste this. So it will increment I and I becomes 2. So it comes again when I equal to 2, what happens? But I equal to 2, what happens? Now it comes here to this line, is 2 less than the length, 2 less than or equal to 4. 2 is less than 4, so this is correct. So it will increment I again and I becomes what? 3. So it comes again when I equal 3, what happens? So is 3 less than or equal to 4? So 3 is less than 4, so this is actually true. It moves then to increment I. So our I becomes 4. So it comes again here when I equal to 4, what happens? So is 4 less than or equal to 4? 4 is not less than 4, but 4 is equal to 4, right? So since this is true, it will increment I and our I becomes 5. So when I equal to 5, what happens? Now is 5 less than or equal to 4? 5 is not less than 4 and 5 is not equal to 4, so this is where the iteration stop. So this is where the iteration terminates, right? This is where the iteration terminates. So now if I'm to work with this, so our result for the outer loop will be so our result for the outer loop will be I equals 0, I equals 0, I equal 1, I equal 2, I equal 3, I equal 4, right? So these are our results for the outer loop. Now let's look at the inner loop. Now the inner loop says in j equal to 0 and j is less than length, so j plus plus. Now what happens? So for each of the I here, so our j started from 0, so when j is equal to 0, for when I is equal to 0, so when j is equal to 0, what happens? So is 0 less than 4? Yes, it needs to increment j and j becomes what? 1. So this is true. Then when j equal 1, let me use this. When j equal 1, what happens? So it means here, it comes again here, is 1 less than 4. So 1 is less than 4, it will also increment j. So it will increment j again. Our j becomes what? 2. So it comes here is 2. It comes here again when j is equal to 2. Is 2 less than 4? Now 2 is less than 4. So it will increment j again. Now j becomes 3. So since j is now 3, it comes again. Is 3 less than 4? 3 is less than 4. So increment j and now j becomes what? 4. Now it comes again. Is 4 less than 4? 4 is not less than 4, right? So this one will be out because 4 is not less than 4. So we're left with when I equal to 0, then our j is equal to 0, j equal to 1, j equal to 2, j equal to 3. Now it does the same thing for this one. When I equal to 1, then our j is equal to 0, j equal to 1, j equal to 2, j equal to 3. It does the same thing here. So if I'm to run this, right, you can see what happens, right? This is what happens when I equal to 1. When I equal to 0, j runs 4 times. When I equal to 1, j runs 4 times. Right? When I equal to 2, j runs 4 times. When I equal to 3, j runs 4 times. When I equal to 4, j runs 4 times. Right? Now, that is how the computer processes this instruction here. Right? So, assuming we say j is equal to 2, then this length is -1. What happens? So it means that when I equals to 0, that means j equals to 1, j equals to 2 will be out, j equals to 0, j equals to 1 will be out, sorry, because j is started from 2. Now let's look at this. When j is equal to 2, it means there is 2 less than, remember this length is 4, right? So 4 minus 1 is 3. Is 2 less than 3? 2 is less than 3, so it will increment j and our j becomes for 3. Now we come to again, is 3 less than 3? 3 is not less than 3, right? So that means this will be out. So we're now left with I equal to, when I equal to 0, our j equal to 2. Then what about when I equal to 1? What will be our j? So when I equal to 1, our j will still be, our j is 2, so our j will still run 1 times. When I equal to 1, then our j is still equal to 2. So when I equal to 2, our j is still equal to 2. So if we run this, you see it here. Let's compare it again. So when I equal to 0, our j equal to 2. When I equal to 1, j equal to 2. That is how it keeps on j equal to 2. You can see, right? This is how it works. And this is how it is. You keep on repeating it until when I equal to 4, and that's it. So you need to understand how computer processes instruction, right? So anyhow you put it, you can be able to solve it like this. Follow up the way I did it here, then you can be able to solve anything here for the nested loop, right? Now let's do an example. Let's do one last example here. If I have, because now I want to change this for loop to a while loop, right? I want to change this for loop to while loop. Remember, I'm using for loop, so let's try to use while loop to do this. Now the first thing I need to do here is I have the outside loop, which is 0. Now while I is less than the length, then I'll print f so let's print the next line. So I'll print f I, right? Then while, so I have the inner loop, which is int j is equal to 0, right? So while j is less than the length, so print f let's take it to next line, j, right? Then increment j by 1 to j plus 1, and Then finally I will increment I plus 1. Or you can say I plus plus or j plus plus, and I want to do it. Now, this is another method to write the nested loop. So the first one we use a for, and then this one we use while. So depending on which one you are comfortable with. Now, this we actually run the same thing, right? The same. Let's say when I is this, then our j will be this. So let's try to run this, right? So you can see the while loop and the j loop runs the same way. So when I is this, our j runs this, I equals to 1. So if we are to solve this, right? So let's try to solve this the way we did this one here. Now look at it. Remember, the while loop is easier than the for loop, right? Now our I is equal to 0. So when I is less than, so in this one here, our I is equal to 0, right? So it's 0 less than 4. 0 is less than 4, right? So since this is true, it comes here and print what? It comes here and print 0, right? That is it. It comes here and print 0, and then our j, and then j is equal to 0 here, right? Then look at it. It will execute the j. This while loop will execute. We run until this is false. That is where the I will then increment, right? That is how the while loop works. Now, when j is equal to 0, right? Is 0 less than the length? 0 is less than the length, right? So it will print what? This j. So it will print j, which is 0, right? Then it will not increment I yet until this is false, right? That is when it will increment I and comes again to the outer loop. Now let's look at, okay, so now we are still in j. Remember, it will increment j, right? So you increment j by 1. So j is now, our j is now 1. Is now 1. So it comes here again. So our j is now 1, right? Our j is now 1. So it checks again. Is 1 less than 4? Now 1 is less than 4, so it will print 1, right? Then our j is now 2, because 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, right? Then it comes again here. Our j is now 2, right? So is 2 less than 4? Now 2 is less than 4, so it will print 2. And then our j is now 3. And comes again, our j is equal to 3. So is 3 less than 4? Now 3 is less than 4, so it will come again and print 3. Then our j is now 4, right? So it comes again here, and j is now 4, right? J is now equal to 4. So is 4 less than 4? 4 is not less than 4, so there will be no j equal to 4, so it will end here. So when I equal to 0, our j will be 0, j will be 1, j will be 2, j will be 3. Then that is when the I, since this iteration, the inner iteration has terminated here, that is where this I will then increment. Then the outer loop will now increment by 1, which is I equal 0 plus 1, which will give you 1. Then it will keep on repeating this until the outer loop becomes false. That's when the iteration stops. That's why we have I equal to 0, then we have this. When I equal to 1, then we have this. When I equal to 2, then we have this. When I equal to 3, then we have this. But if we have when I is less than or equal to this, then our I will run 5 times. So we will now have I equal to 4. You can see, so let's run it and see. So you can see we now have I equal to 4, right? So it works the same way as the for loop. So you can choose the one you prefer to use, right? Do you like to use a for loop, or do you like to use a while loop, or do you like to use the do while loop? Anyone you love to use, but I just urge you guys to practice and then understand each of the loops so that you can solve any problem. So in our when I will be teaching data structure in C, we'll be solving some problems with the loops, especially problems like the sorting algorithm, the divide and conquer, where we look at the merge sort, the binary search, the queues, the stacks. We're going to be doing all those things, right? And see, and you can see, but the main thing is that you guys have understood how the for loop works, how the nested loop works, right? So this is just an introduction to programming, right? So we'll not be going that deep on writing the songs that buried in here. We'll do that in our introduction to that structure class. So thank you and God bless you. So in the next lecture, we're going to be looking at functions and pointer structures and union. Thank you and God bless you.